Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to yet another episode here on Life Signatures Radio. In this episode, we are going ahead in building up towards this series where we're talking about inculcating the purpose of the organization as a culture within that organization, and seeing that if you ask anyone that you meet in your organization what they are doing, the answer they're going to give you relates to the purpose of the organization and not just the task that they're doing. In other words, they know through and through that they are employed or they are working towards a greater good or a greater cause. And so we've been looking at some of the ways that can happen as a leader, what you can be able to do to instill that. But before that, we also build some kind of foundation to say why it is important for us to have a purpose culture within the organization. Today, let us look at one more way in which you can be able to have this vision or this purpose communicated and inculcated so that it becomes culture in the organization. Stay tuned.
Welcome to the Life Signatures podcast with Lawrence Namale. Lawrence is a life coach, author, and keynote speaker who loves to tackle different topics on purpose, productivity, and resilience. His mission in life is to awaken all your boundless possibilities available in you. Life Signatures podcast is dedicated to bring to reality every single person who knows that deep down in their gut, there's got to be more to life than this. And now, here is your host, Lawrence Namale.
Life Signatures episodes are brought to you by africanbooks.com, which is an online ebook platform that seeks to broadcast the African Christian voice to the world. As such, they have become a hub for African content, connecting African writers and publishers with a global reading audience. Publishing your books on their site is free and easy, with authors having full control over their content and the price they choose to sell at it. I was personally blown away by the concept that africanbooks.com is coming up with. Things like no content from their site or their app is going to be run on laptops so that people can easily copy. In other words, your content as a writer is restricted from digital multiplication or digital copying, so you remain intact with your information. And the other concept that I got so blown away with was the fact that in some time to come, in due course, africanbooks.com will be starting to announce African Writer of the Year. In other words, there will be competitions in all African countries to figure out who is the best published author. And I also fell in love with the fact that countries can actually compete against each other. You can have African authors going at it after each other, and your book as an author will be reviewed and have some stars and recommended upon that particular platform. The thing is that it's an answer to Amazon.com. You know, with Amazon, what happens? You've got to have an account in the Americas or whatever, or in Europe before you can get paid as an author. But here, the local currency is in play and the local means of getting paid are in play. So to get started, go to africanbooks.com as an author or as a publisher, and even as a reader if you wanted to read your African favorite authors. Enjoy. This podcast is a virtual incubator for purpose, productivity, and resilience. And if it's making any kind of sense to you, making you reflect and giving you some kind of instruction, motivation, and is giving you some kind of new information, is teaching you one way or another, it means that it can also do the same with someone else. So you can subscribe to the channel, whatever place it is that you're listening to it. Maybe it's on Stitcher, it's on Apple Podcasts, it's on Google Podcasts, Ghana, whatever it is, a channel that you're listening to this podcast, just subscribe to it. And then also share with as many people in your circles as possible. If it's changing you, it's going to change them also. So let me do a recap of what we've been talking about, even as we are starting to wind this up. I keep saying that and I don't wind it. But the first thing we say that if you're going to make sure that you're inculcating culture into your organization, the culture of your purpose into the organization, you're going to make sure that the greater good is what you're preaching the more. You're looking at the existence of the organization for the greater good. You're communicating the greater good. I know sometimes when we meet in boardrooms, we are talking about profit. What is the target? I mean, how many did we sell? Let us flip it so that we can talk about how many lives did we change, how many people were impacted, how many people were connected to the network, how many people's communication problems were solved, how many people illiteracy problems were solved, how many people were reached, and so on. The greater good is why the organization is existing. So talk about that more in your boardrooms, in your meetings, in the organization. Talk about that more before you can even employ me into your organization. Talk about the greater good that you're doing as an organization. Not just the feedback, the profits and so on, the side effects of the greater good. Number 2, if you're going to inculcate the culture of purpose in your organization, you're going to walk the talk. You cannot want people to have inculcated in them the culture of your organization, in fact, the culture of the purpose of the organization, and you are not doing the same. Vision is more caught, purpose is more caught sometimes than it is taught. When they see you passionate about something, they are going to know that it matters and they will want to do the same thing. The same goes with excellence, same goes with timeliness, maturity, care. All these things are a culture that you build by going the way, showing the way, knowing the way. Number 3, we talked about this yesterday. You match the talents and the skill to purpose. In other words, you know the kind of work that you want done, or you know the kind of organization that you are and what you are up to. But then you start looking at the hearts of people. Where are they? You are not going to employ someone who is into number crunching and yet you are into people building, unless of course their number crunching is connected to people building. You match the skills and the talents that are coming through your organization, or they want to be recruited. You match them to the purpose of your organization so that you can see the best fit. I've interviewed quite a number of CEOs, and they have told me the same, that's what they do. They have told me that they don't look necessarily at the academic qualifications and competence, because some of the things that they want done can actually be taught in the organization, but they look at the best fit. When this person comes, or are they going to disrupt the culture of the organization, or are they going to build on it? That's why headhunting is normally done, because there are very many people qualified out there, but not everyone will fit into an organization. It's about purpose fit that they're looking at. Today, let us go a step further, and number 4, if you're going to inculcate the vision of purpose in your organization, number 4, you're going to nurture it. It goes without saying, you're going to nurture it. Let me tell you this, the purpose of the organization is not going to go into the organization automatically. It's not going to do it by osmosis. You're going to be intentional about it, and you're going to nurture it. And when I talk about nurturing it, I'm talking about inculcating that purpose into the organization by intention, by having particular trainings and programs. And I see very many trainings being done today, the so-called team building, whereas they have their place, but I can easily bet nearly 90% of the team building activities that you guys normally do for your organizations, they don't have an element of purpose for the organization in it. They don't. People are just going to jump and learn problem solving and learn teamwork and learn communication and learn sales and so on. But nobody talks about the reason as to why you exist as an organization. Is it any wonder that you come back from the team building after a weekend spent away from the organization after team building and nothing changes the next week? It's the same old, same old. No one has gone to the next level. No one has clarity as to why the organization exists. Because the nurturing that you're doing, in fact, let me tell you this, one of the sorriest things I see in Africa today is that if an organization wants to budget and cut down the budgets, you know where they start? They start with human resource. And you know where the human resource starts cutting their budget? They start with cutting the training budget. They don't value training. They don't value nurturing people and the purpose of the organization. Purpose is a living entity and it lives in the hearts of people. And if you're going to nurture it, you're going to make sure that you're doing it the right way. It's not going to be automatic. You don't expect that you've built a major company, big offices and so on, and automatically people will fall in love with it. No, there is a spirit within the organization that you need to nurture. And you don't hire somebody else to come from outside and nurture it inside the organization. Someone who is going to come from outside, they're going to do what I call appendages. They're going to add these skills and these competencies, and they're going to add these problem solving scenarios and so on and so forth. They're going to excite people, maybe motivate them for a minute. But inspiration for purpose comes from within the organization when you nurture this as the leader, as the founder of the organization. And therefore it means you as the leader of the organization, you are the chief trainer of the purpose of the organization. Nobody knows it better than you. You cannot hire a motivational speaker to come and speak purpose into your organization. You cannot hire an outsider to come and speak these things. Yes, hire those motivational speakers to come and pump people up and inspire them and, give them some kind of motivation, but it's not going to touch on purpose. Purpose is not something that comes arbitrarily in an organization. That is why we need to have mechanisms that nurture it. And I'm talking about goals. I'm not talking about goals. I'm not talking about targets. I'm not talking about these hard aspects of the project that we are doing. They are important. They are needed. I'm talking about stories. When is the last time the organization you're working for had a story of how a life has been impacted by what you do? And what do you people talk about in those meetings? When you go for a boardroom meeting, are you telling stories that are talking about the impact of your purpose as an organization? I don't know, maybe you're a telco company. Are you talking about stories that your connection saved a life? You connecting people, a phone call was able to be made and a life was saved, a life was delivered. This is what connects people and rallies people around the project that you're doing. When is the last time the organization that you're working for had this kind of a thing? When is the last time the employees saw the smiles that the organization has put on people's faces? When we meet in these boardrooms, you know what we normally look at? There's a big spreadsheet being put on PowerPoint. And what does it have? Figures. It has its place. It has its place, by the way, it's needed. But behind those figures is purpose. Behind those figures are lives being changed, transformed, impacted, lives, problems being sorted, impact being created. That is what those figures are. And those stories are what motivates people in terms of purpose. They are the salesperson that understands the purpose now goes out there knowing that there is a greater good to this selling that I'm doing. And therefore they want to connect better. Okay, I know this is theory, but you get my point. You get my point that there is if you're going to nurture purpose, you're going to share stories. You're going to talk about what the organization is all about. Unfortunately, we end up in board meetings and we spend much time talking about the bottom lines and targets, and we need to flip this. at some point in time we need to flip this. And I know it is more transformational. It takes a lot of time. Maybe it's not that rosy and so on. And bottom lines are there. But I think we need to have meetings, board meetings, where we're talking about impact and stories, sharing stories. When I was leading an organization at some point in time, I used to use this formula to go to the boardrooms. Before I can share my slides and tell the client how many targets we have been able to hit and so on, I will share stories. I will say this dealer did this and this and this and this. This was the before we came into the picture. This is the after. I'm telling you, I did that for 6 months after being engaged. And then when I realized I needed more resources, I went to the CEO and we said, we need these resources. We need 25 more people. They said, done. Then we said, we need motorbikes. They said, done. Because purpose was being fulfilled right then and there. So what if we focus on getting these powerful stories that we are creating, this impact that is being shown by what we are doing? What if we focus on letting people in the organization know that this is what they are doing, this is the result of their existence? It is one of those ways that you can be able to nurture purpose and train it into the organization. Well, tomorrow we are going to talk about something else, but until then, bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to Life Signatures Radio. If you enjoyed today's show, subscribe to Life Signatures Radio on iTunes, Stitcher, or visit our website at lifesignatures.libsyn.com. Life Signatures Radio, fresh, clean, and inspiring.